Hello, happy Saturday. Today I have a very fun video planned for you guys. I am taking you on a very lovely hike. We are in the new country and we're scouting out places to live, getting a feel for the area, and we've been here for a few weeks now and have been on this hike a couple of times, and I decided the first time that we went on it that it was beautiful and I wanted to paint there. There's this big cliff overlook situation that me and Miles sat on, and we did a little art class together, and then I decided to film a little YouTube video. And I wanted to share my process as I was painting, but the spot that I found, I guess, looked too tantalizing to other people who were on the hike, and they saw my little quiet tucked away spot and sat right next to me, which is fine. I can share. But I couldn't do any audio during it, so I brought my backpack full of my art supplies, my like sushi roll up brush holder thing, and my travel palette that I've had for many years, all my Princeton brushes. I brought little cups and a jug of water to refill and a blanket to sit on the grass, and it was just me and a cow and the ocean and a couple other people who were on the hike. And I painted this fun, grassy, washy, wet seaside little landscape. Very simple, something to just get me creative and get me in my brushes again. Since we're in this like transition period, there hasn't been much downtime. We're kind of like trying to get a feel for the area, see if we want to live here and find a house and explore around. There's so many fun things to do here and explore and see. So we've been doing a lot of that. So on today's hike, I found this like grassy patch and just used my size 16 Princeton Heritage 4050 brush to paint my scene. So for this painting, I used my size 16 round brush, the Princeton 4050 series round brush. I'll link to it in the description of this video. I used a lot of sap green and lemon yellow deep or primary yellow. This is an old palette of mine. I've had it for at least 10 years, so it has my old paints that I used to use from Winsor & Newton. So this is lemon yellow deep and sap green from Winsor & Newton. And I got it to a creamy consistency. This watercolor sketchbook is from an art supply store in Florence, Italy called Zecchi or Zecchi, Z-E-C-C-I or C-C-H-I, I can't remember. So I'm just gonna swash it around kind of in this looser, more whimsical style. Not really paying attention to detail. I'm using water to brush it down a little bit more and make a gradient of yellow-green and a lighter, more transparent yellow-green, dipping in my color here and there to add more creamy consistency of that same color to break up and add dimension so that it's not all a flat value or flat color. And I'm just covering the bottom like third of my paper because I'm just gonna paint the grass that's right in front of me that's overlooking the sky and the ocean. And again, I'm just keeping it simple because sometimes you just need a little time outside with your paintbrushes and you don't need to overcomplicate it. You don't need to think too hard about what to paint or perfecting anything. It's just about the moment and about getting into flow. And now while the base of my yellow green is wet, I'm going in with a slightly darker sap green and lemon yellow deep consistency, mostly sap green, to add in little bumps while the base is wet. So this would be considered wet and wet technique. And so I'm just stroking or sweeping in that sap green while the lemon yellow and sap green underneath it is still wet. So I have a nice blendy blend between the hues, which looks really nice and windswept. Apologies if you can hear my child singing in the background. A little bit more sap green on my brush, a little bit thicker, to again add a little bit more shadow and dimension. And then I'm going to grab my size 6 brush and dip it into sap green. Actually, this is my size 2 brush. Princeton, same series, Heritage 4050. And the base layer is still, as you can see, pretty glistening, so it's still wet, but it's not puddly. It's just a thin sheen or glaze of wet color. Then I'm going in with my size 2 brush and a thick consistency of sap green. And I'm just lightly, with little to no pressure. Oh, hello, little fly on my shoe. Little to no pressure, adding in little grassy stuff. And then at times I'm also just using the color that's wet, the base layer, and painting in some really light, faint grasses. So still using the tip of my size 2 brush, a vertical hold so that I use just the tip, and not the belly of the brush. Adding in some faint values, so some lighter consistencies or values of my sap green color, and then sometimes adding in a little bit of a darker, creamier consistency of sap green to break up and add dimension. And all of this is still wet underneath, so it's gonna make the grass look a little bit fuzzy, a little bit blurry. And then when everything dries, I can go back on top of the blurry grass and add some detail on top of it to make it crisp. So I'm just gonna keep doing this grassy stuff. Now I'm down here in the right-hand corner and I'm kind of using just like a little bit more water on my brush to add some highlights in the grass because the water is going to push away the slightly damp color underneath. And then I'll go in between with some darker sap green to carve out some shadow. So now on my size 2 brush, I have some Scarlet Lake or Permanent Red Light if you have My Merry Blue. So some really thick, creamy consistency of Scarlet Lake for that bright, poppy cherry red for these wildflowers that I'm seeing on the hill next to me overlooking the ocean. It's just the perfect, cute little flower, the perfect bright red color against this green backdrop. I want to make sure that the color that I'm using is clean, so no green on my brush, and the base layer is mostly dry. It's still a little bit wet, but because I'm using a really thick consistency of Scarlet Lake, it's not going to bleed too much. If your base layer is more wet than mine, if it's like more than damp, then it will bleed. So you want it to be a little bit more on the dry side before you start adding in your red. La-di-dee, la-di-da, more grass, please. I could have, if I wanted to, done the whole hillside grassy knoll with these little grass strokes, but I was getting quite impatient, to be honest, and the whole point of this painting session is for peace and not impatience. So I skipped doing the whole hill in full detail to protect my peace and to keep myself in flow. Sometimes I do that for myself because painting is really, although I'm a professional artist and I teach art online, painting is really, for me, like I need it to be not frustrating. I need it to be as peaceful as possible. So now I'm doing more like leaf strokes with my size 2 brush. So I've got a 75-degree hold with the brush, putting medium pressure on it and using that like angle of the brush to make more of these like leaf shapes, like tulip or big blades of grass shapes. Going in with my flicking motion with little to no paint on my brush to get even more detail in between. So I keep adding depth. I'm starting light and then I add more depth as I get closer and closer to the foreground. And I'm keeping most of the detail down in this bottom right side, just to keep the viewer's eyes going through the sweeping hillside. I could cover this entire grassy little hill situation with all of this grass, but I'm thinking of just keeping it on the right side mostly and fading it out as I get to the left and further away from the foreground. Using the tip of the size 6 brush again for the thin strokes, little to no pressure. And then if I want those thicker blades of grass, I'll lower the angle of my brush and apply more pressure. More thick consistency of paint, maybe even adding in a touch of black and brown to my sap green to make it even darker for my grasses in front, and just making sure to have this on the minimal side and not trying to cover up all my midtones and my lighter grasses in the background. So this is just used for a punchy detail. And that really helps to bring the grass detail forward and make it look a little bit more detailed, but then also showing depth with the lighter grasses behind. So now I'm sprinkling in more of those juicy red poppies with a very thick, creamy consistency of Scarlet Lake, doing slightly bigger shapes in the foreground to make them appear much closer. And then just tiny little dots in the distance. And little bloops, little bloopy bloops, maybe some cut off on the bottom, little boop, boop, boopity boop. And for placement, I'm just having fun, to be honest. I would think about this a little bit more if I was trying to make something that I'm super duper proud of, but this is just merely for the sake of painting, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's sunny, it's kind of hot, there's people around. John and Miles are off on a hike, but they are waiting for me a little bit, so I didn't have tons of time to do exactly what I wanted for this painting. It was mostly for the process and enjoying the process and having fun. But for the most part, we're following composition rules by trying to lead people's eyes through the painting. So I'm more dense on the bottom right and then less dense over on the left. And there you have it. Fun, easy, simple painting. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We are trying a new format. I've been wanting to try this format for a few months now, but obviously I have been in transition. We have been moving. It has been a bit chaotic. So yeah, thank you for following along during all of the ups and downs of this journey that I've been on. And if you want to follow more of the behind the scenes journey of our move and our travels, make sure you're following me on Instagram. I'm sharing more on my stories there and whatnot. But go out there, find your little patch of peace and paint, whether it's a park bench, whether it's a little corner of your apartment or house or your backyard or a place that you love to go to like the beach, whatever. Find your patch of peace, bring your paintbrushes, bring your art supplies, or just sit and meditate and take it in. Deep breaths. You owe it to yourself. That gift of presence, the gift of just grabbing peace by the horns whenever you can. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, see you guys next week. I'm going to do another fun hiking, painting video next week as well. So let me know in the comments what you thought about today's video and all of that kind of good stuff. And I'll see you next week.